Welcome back. If you're just joining us in studio, we do have our economist, or rather an economist, Mr. George Munga. He operates as an economist, and we are discussing the MPC decision that came out earlier in the week. What does it mean for you? In other words, so what? The MPC cut its benchmark rate by 25 basis points. Why should you care? Why should I care, George?
You should care. As a business person, I think it's a pointer into where the economy is headed to. One, I just want to give you a background of on what central bank MPC committee, the Monetary Policy Committee, considers when they're reviewing some of these rates. What do they consider when they want to move it, let's say, from 8.5 to 9, or when you want to move it from 9 to back to 8? One, they look at the inflation figures in the market. If you look at 2019, our inflation figures were quite stable.
Yes,
we were oscillating between 5.8, 5.5, 5.3. In fact, we closed 2019 December with around 5.8, which is a good rate, or a good rate for inflation for an economy like ours. Two, they look at our what we call our current account deficits. Okay. Yes, and that is compared vis-a-vis our GDP. We closed 2019 with a current account deficit around 4% of GDP, which is a bad thing for
it's actually
for
steady,
our economy.
and it's narrowing.
That has been steady. Yes. And from their forecast, they think it's going to stabilize at 4% for the better part of this year. And then the other thing that they look at is geopolitics, or geopolitical movements geopolitics, let me call it that way, or the global money market. If you look at the global money market, of course, the big players are now the Federal Bank, of course, in the US, the likes of the UK. It's been relatively stable, apart from the last quarter of 2019 and part of 2020, when we've had a bit of risks here and there, especially with the killing of Soleimani in Iraq, and that has caused a bit of shake-ups in the energy market.
So that's oil prices have sort of been
exactly.
Okay.
But again, that is stabilizing.
And also the concerns in Libya as well, because there have been global meetings discussing the Libya as a country and the political risk, as well as oil output from that country.
Agree with you. Yeah. Agree with you. I think we will look at the energy, but just in brief,
yes.
Energy plays a very critical role in the inflation figures in any given economy, especially in an economy like ours. So once the MPC looks at those factors, then they come to a conclusion that this is the rate that we think we should maintain, or this is the rate that we should push now to the commercial banks. When the rate cap was still in place, you realize the central bank, the CBR rate had an immediate impact on what rates the commercial banks want to charge at any given time, because again that was now determined by the law. But after the repeal of the rate caps, it only acts as a guide on what the commercial banks can charge in terms of interest rates to their clients. So when the interest rate caps were repealed, there were two aspects. One, the repeal mentioned that the existing loans were to be priced either at the existing rates or lower than the rates that were repealed at that time.
Yes.
But any new loan, commercial banks are allowed to charge any rate that they so wish. The CBR now just acts as a guide to the Kenya Bank Association now to discuss with their members what rate they think they should operate in. So any business any business person in this space, especially who wants to grow or who wants to get credit from the bank, you should be ready to absorb an increased interest expense, because I believe most banks now will not be charging the 13-14% that they charged last year. Interest rates will go slightly higher, going into Q1 and Q2 of this year, and we're likely to see interest rates of 17%. So any person playing in that space should be able to should be willing or should be ready to absorb that expense. Exactly.
Okay, George, I know you wear two hats. You are an economist as well as an accountant.
Exactly.
When we're looking at a higher cost to you as a business, that's really your finance cost. If I'm looking at my income statement,
exactly.
What are the key ratios I need to be considerate of as a business owner today, just to make sure that I am not over the top if anything happens? What sensitivity can I do?
You do what we call a stress analysis in your business. business to know what ratios you should not go beyond. For any business person, there are two ratios that are very critical. One is your finance cost to revenue. That is very critical for you. And then two, your employment costs to revenue. And then maybe the last one is your direct cost. For those who are trading, your direct costs to revenue. Any serious business or any business that is planning to be in this market for the longer term, for the medium term, should be looking at a bottom line of say 10% of their gross revenue.
So your net profit margin needs to be at a bare minimum 10%. Otherwise, you have no business in that.
You might not survive very long in the market.
So 10%.
So for finance cost, maybe you're looking at something not more than 2% of your gross revenue.
Why do I get the feeling like some people are operating as 200?
If you pass that, then probably you need to just restructure your capital ratio.
Just hold on. I can see you're getting very excited about this. 2%, let's put it into numbers. If I'm running a business of 1 million, what's 2% is 20,000.
Exactly. 1 million, 2% should be, is it 20,000 or 20,000?
Yes,
yes, 20,000, yes.
It's 20,000. If it was 20%, it would be 200.
That should be your interest expense.
Remember, interest expense.
Remember when you have a loan.
What loan is this?
When you have a loan, there is the interest element, and then there is the capital repayment element. For example, if you have a loan 10 million, the amount you pay per month, there's the interest element, and then there's the principal repayment element. So what I'm talking about is the interest element alone. Yes,
fair enough. And what
not
about the principal?
The total amount to be paid.
All right.
Yes. If you look at your total loan repayments to your gross revenue, then it should still not go up more than 10%.
So 10%, that's the rule of thumb. So if the interest cost should not be more than 2%, and then the total finance cost not more than 10%.
Exactly.
So, but going with the same example, all my loan portfolio, or rather all my debt repayments should not be more than 100,000 for a business that's generating.
Exactly. For a business that is generating a million shillings per annum, 100,000 should be the maximum you pay in your loan facilities.
And what about your then staff to revenue cost? What's a proxy to use?
Staff to revenue cost, there's an element that is called staff productivity. I know HR practitioners like to mention a lot about that. So they look at staff productivity vis-a-vis your revenues, and then the staff cost vis-a-vis now the total revenues. Staff cost should normally not go. Staff cost normally, it depends on industry to industry. There are those industries that are labor intensive. There are those industries that are not labor intensive. So it depends from one industry to the next. For labor intensive industries, they look at a staff cost of not more than 30% of your gross revenue. For those that are not, then you look at something below 10%.
Okay. Yes. Let me bring you back to this finance cost. The total finance cost as a percentage revenue. The proxy that we're using is 10%. That's a good place to be at. Really, that needs to be your ceiling if you want to run a sustainable business. Now that the MPC has cut back the rates to 8.25, as a business owner, should I be trying to go back to the bank and restructure my facility, or what advantages? What can I do with regards to my debt today, just to take advantage of this window that the MPC has provided, if at all?
There's what the law says, and then there's the practice, or what now the bankers will do when you go to them. It's a good Well, when bankers are pricing their loans, they look at the risk. The risk profile of any borrower matters a lot to any lender. If you are to walk in today to KCB and you work in hand with Safaricom, Safaricom will definitely get 12% interest. You might get 20%. Why? Because your risk profile is a bit.
My risk profile is not that high, George.
An example.
No, I don't like being given. You could go there and I go sit to the bank and they tell me, "Mbita nilikuona kwa TV." Wewe ni mtu wa 20%. I don't agree to that, but on a light note.
We're talking about the risk profiles. So if an SME and a corporate, a blue chip company were to walk into a bank, the risk profiles are different. Let's I'm giving this example of Safaricom and maybe an SME. So the risk profile is a very important factor that banks consider when they're pricing their facility. And when you walk in to a bank, the way you negotiate your lending rate or your borrowing rate is to show to the bank that your risk is not that high. Well, how do you show that? One is by giving your previous credit history. How have you borrowed and repaid previously?
So
how is your business?
Exactly.
CRB report. Yes.
So that's something that I should just to hold you onto that point. So if you say CRB is part part of the checklist that I can use to negotiate, should it then be part of my monthly or quarterly checks as a business? So it's a document that I need to be able to get.
To be checking, yes. Even for your own consumption, you need to be checking how your CRB report looks like. So that is one area that you look at. Two, you need to demonstrate to the bank that your governance structures are solid, so that when they pump money into your business, they are not likely to lose that money because of governance issue. And then you need to put up a business case for your business. If you address those three, then you can comfortably negotiate for a rate that is favorable to you. But when you just walk in and leave the bank to look at your profile on their own, then they'll definitely look at you as a risky client, therefore charge you 18-19%.
I feel like I need to come with my strategic plan here if I had one, just to ask you, Mwalimu, what do you think? Then I can go with a frame of mind to the bank. But that's a conversation for another day.
Exactly.
So we're talking about the rule of thumb if I am a business and I want to get credit, or if I already have existing credit facilities. Now, there's always this elephant in the room. We keep saying that, fine, the central bank could bring down the cost of credit, but then we still have the government of Kenya, which is the biggest borrower and really is the largest beneficiary of any movements on the benchmark rate. Beyond me and you, like honestly, the government of Kenya is the biggest beneficiary. Is there an outlook in this particular year that they could possibly borrow less and stop being the largest buyer, or stop being stop taking on the kind of credit that we've seen them take on over the last 2 to 3 years?
Let me put it this way.
Yes.
Government is already overborrowed. Let me use that term if you allow me. Yes. And therefore the headroom is quite slim. If they were to go into the market to borrow, it means they have to repay off some of their loans. So this year I see Treasury borrowing appetite quite limited in the market.
Should I say yes?
You not see them going to the market to borrow. They'll only borrow maybe to bridge budget deficits that are so pressing to them. But the appetite definitely is going to be done, because they already highly borrowed. They might not be able to absorb more borrowings into their finances. So this year you might not see a lot of borrowing on the government side, apart from now definitely the ones that they must borrow to bridge their budget deficits.
And if that happens, the IMF has also come out and said include government guarantees and loans that have been taken on by parastatals as part of the entire national debt. So if that happens, it means that we already are near or more or less hitting the 9 trillion mark that was recently passed by law. Exactly. And I think from what you're saying, the silver lining is then you don't have the government borrowing as much, pushing the banks to actually extend credit to the private sector.
Agree with you.
Is that a scenario that
that's a scenario that's likely to play in the market this year?
Yes.
The only other aspect that I would want to mention is, you see, most borrowers are business people. That's the big borrowers, and they only borrow when they have opportunities, or when they have avenues to go and invest those monies. Currently, the market is quite muted. I think Ofia was telling you that the only sectors that probably registered a bit of growth last year was guys dealing in fast moving consumer goods and guys in the energy sector. Construction didn't do quite well last year, and several other sectors that didn't do quite well. So not unless the economy opens up, we might have the liquidity. Yes, but we might have the rate down there, but the absorption rate will be very limited. That's another that I'm foreseeing.
That is a conversation that I want us to take up just after the break. Look out for the NSC closing bell, and don't go anywhere. We want to show you what sectors could possibly do well. See you in a few.